Welcome, y'all. Humbletalk podcast, episode 5. It's your boy Feast. We back in. Hey, let's talk. Right? Let's talk. So, first thing, I want to give you a quick update on where I've been the past week or so for you guys that have been checking me out. And then we kind of want to get into the story. This story for me is very kind of touching, based on some personal things that I want to talk about today. And I definitely want to get right into that. So, we're going to skip a lot of the pleasantries and kind of get right into it. But first, just a quick rundown. The past week or so, I've been MIA, and that's really due to me trying to update equipment, stuff like that. You know, as you update things, you have things that aren't compatible. You have little issues here and there, and so because of those things, I've kind of been trying to troubleshoot and try to get the right things in, order the right parts, yada, yada, back and forth. And so with that said, I think we have a setup that looks like it's going to work for now. So that's what we're going to go with for now. I actually have a conversation that has been had about getting an actual studio built in order for me to be able to set up, do this thing full time, kick my feet up whenever I feel like it, and have some fun. So you guys will definitely be along for that ride as I go through that process. So I really appreciate y'all for holding it down and sticking with me throughout the process. And I'm definitely going to take y'all with me as we go and keep y'all in the loop. But Tyre Nichols, man. I sat for the past couple of days on this idea of having this conversation, and it's very personal for me. And I decided that I kind of had to have the conversation. I couldn't not have it. So here we go. Tyre Nichols was pulled over in Memphis, Tennessee, instantly grabbed by police officers from what they say was reckless driving. And 98% of it was all caught on body camera, in which they proceeded to beat a man to death on camera. Some of the nastiest shit I've ever seen. Now, coming from a place in the world where I know that cops aren't your friend a lot of time, it didn't surprise me, but I think it did surprise some people. Let me be clear. There are bad cops everywhere. Everywhere. There are good cops everywhere. And because there are bad cops and good cops, I do understand the dichotomy of being a police officer, knowing that there are guys that are bad that are next to you and not wanting to be the guy to tell on those guys or put those guys in a bad situation. What that leads to is a lot of good cops being caught up in bad situations because of that rule that they live by, that we also live by, which is that no snitching thing. I got to correct that. We don't live by that. Some of us live by that. So because of those things, we are in the same situation as them. They're in cars, they're partners. Sometimes their bosses are even the ones that are pushing some of this stuff on to the people, onto their employees, to terrorize people, to put their own emotions into their work rather than just doing the job and going home. It's a very dangerous situation to be in. I can't say that every situation that I've saw on TV or they reported as being hate or being, malpractice on behalf of the police was always that. I don't know every single detail behind every single situation. I don't know. I know some things look a lot worse than other things. I do know that. But I can't definitively say that that's the case. I can't, and I won't. But I do know, just through personal experience, that there are cops out here that do rule by fear. They control the fear. And based on that, they're able to do their job. That's a very hard pill to swallow when you've been to places that I've gone to, and you've been to different states and you've been in different environments, and you understand that more of these cops are alike than they're different. See, I grew up in an era where the cops could just literally pull up whenever they felt like it, frisk you, throw you on the ground, whatever they wanted to do. That's just what it was, because they ruled with fear. I grew up in a tri-state area. So everything in my little area, Delaware, Philly, Jersey, everything is right there. Right there. Baltimore's down the street and New York's 45 minutes away. So I grew up kind of traveling, not maybe your average child's childhood, but I grew up that way. I grew up seeing cops just walk the beat, walk up and down the street. I remember seeing that. I remember seeing cops just as we're hanging out on the block, just guys running down the street, and there's 3 or 4 cops on foot chasing them down the street. Now, again, I'm not saying that every cop was bad. That guy might have actually done something wrong, but you grow up seeing that. You grow up seeing cops break people's arms. You grow up seeing cops slam people's head on cars. You grow up seeing stuff like that, and you get desensitized to it in a way. Me, personally, the first time I was ever in handcuffs, I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old. I was sitting on my stairs. I had 2 friends that were at my house sitting on my stairs. It was about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Cop rolled down my street, and I lived on a side street. So there wasn't much traffic. There wasn't much of anything going on, especially at nighttime on that street. Cop just so happened to ride down my street as my parents were in the house. They were upstairs. I'm assuming they were asleep, but they were upstairs. I'm not absolutely positive. This cop pulls up and says, "Hey, you guys can't be outside." My response respectfully was, "Oh, I understand, but this is my house and these are my friends. They're spending the night at my house." He looked at me. And he drove off. He got to the corner of my street and stopped. He never turned the corner. He got there and just stopped. Couple minutes later, another cop drove by. All the while, this original cop is just sitting at this stop sign. This other cop goes around the corner. He pulls down the other side of my street. My street's a one-way at the time. He pulls down my street. He stops maybe 2 feet, maybe 2 houses over from where my steps are. Because, to be clear, the houses back home where I'm from are row houses. So our houses are built straight up. They're not built out like Texas houses. So the houses are connected. They have basements. And because they have basements, they have stairs to go to the front door from the sidewalk. Well, we have sidewalks too, unlike in Texas. So the cop at the stop sign puts the car in reverse and reverses back. That cop stops. This new cop that just pulled up is sitting 2 houses or so over, and he stops. They both get out of the car. They approach us. The cop says again, "I told you guys can't be outside." I respectfully said, "I understand, but I'm sitting on my own property. These guys are with me, so we're fine. What's the problem?" The moment I said that, I was reached over and snatched off the stairs. I was snatched off the stairs at 10 years old. He didn't even ask how old I was. Just snatched me off the stairs. Now, some people will say, "Hey, well, you just should have just went inside." But by law, if I'm on my own property, I don't have to go anywhere. So here's where me knowing that isn't me bucking the system or me attempting to be combative with the police. I'm not committing a crime. I'm not disturbing the peace. We're sitting here and we're having a conversation amongst ourselves at 10, 11 years old. My door's unlocked. This is my house. Why do I need to go inside? Now, what I can say to that is, well, what you could have done as the police was went and had me go get my parents, and then you could have told them that and let them make the decision. And then we could have figured it out from there, and we could have, agreed to go whichever way we're going to go. Shout out to the frames. So, because as an adult, you could look at that and go, well, as the adult, you could have made the decision. And what we could have done is we could have gotten to the bottom of it. The adults could have. In which case, my dad or my mom or whoever would have said, "Hey, you know what? It's not worth it. Just come on inside. No problem." But you guys didn't choose to take it that way. You grabbed me up, put me in handcuffs, and slammed me on the hood of a cop car at 10 years old. My friends ran in the house to get my parents. By the time my parents came outside to come get me, we had already left. We were in the back of the car. We were gone. There was a substation in the neighborhood up the street by Johnny's. Johnny's is a store in our neighborhood that we were frequent all the time. I don't want to say funny story about that, but a couple years prior, maybe 5, 6 years ago from now, I got a phone call that some people went into his store. They went into his store and attempted to rob him. I guess I don't know if the robbery went bad or didn't go bad, but they ended up shooting him in the face with a shotgun and blowing his face off in broad daylight, killing him. That's a story for another day, though. But in that parking lot, across from that store, they had a substation. They take me to the substation. They take me in there. They try to process me or whatever the case may be. Now there's a 10-year-old, me, and 3 grown men, cops in this substation. The cops are trying to get my information. I'm cooperating, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what I should or shouldn't tell them at the time. 10 years old, right? So, as we're kind of talking, the cop picks me up as I'm in handcuffs, puts me against the wall, and starts to say some stuff to me that's pretty nasty, and I won't repeat it. But from that moment, I realized that the energy that these guys were putting off as grown men is not productive energy. It's not going to make me want to be a productive citizen. It's not going to make me see them and salute them for the risk that they put themselves through to protect me. I was more worried about them than I was the guys on the street. That was a problem. And this is 10 years old. I have another friend. As we were sitting on the corner of a bakery, right? It was a bakery, but at nighttime they closed. It was in a neighborhood. We just hang out. We were sitting outside. Police officer. His name was Crawford. That's not a made up name. That was what his name was. Called him Crawford. He pulled up, talked to one of the older guys that was hanging with us at the time. He was just sitting outside with us talking. The conversation was good. We could hear the conversation back and forth. He was sitting on the stairs. Crawford was in his car. But Crawford was always one of those guys you had to kind of keep an eye on. He was always shiesty. And so as they had the conversation, Crawford drives off. Well, as Crawford drives off, the gentleman that's there with us, he gets up. Hey, I'm going to go to the store. He starts walking. He gets 10 feet away from us. Well, at this time, Crawford already left. He had kind of circled the block. We didn't know that until he came back around to the four-way. He came back around, he pulled up. And as we look over, we see Crawford stop again in the middle of the street to talk to the same gentleman. Again, the conversation from where we're sitting doesn't look like it's conducive to any violence going on. It looks like, hey, you guys are just picking up. Maybe you had another question to ask him about whatever, right? I don't know. Crawford gets out of the car and approaches the guy. The guy puts his hands up and takes one step back. Just one. He doesn't run. He's not going anywhere. Takes one step back. Crawford lunges for him, grabs him, spins him, and slams him. Broke his jaw in 2 places. His mom lived on the next block over. We could see his house from where we were sitting on the corner. So one of my friends runs over, gets his mom. He's on the ground in agony. Crawford now, after 5 minutes of leaving him on the ground without being in handcuffs, he puts him in handcuffs. Well, that's interesting that you would put a man in handcuffs. That one, you weren't looking for. 2, we, for what it's worth, heard 99% of the conversation. And number 3, what could he have done in that 2-minute time frame to warrant being slammed on his face and getting his jaw broken 2 places? But you got to put him in handcuffs, because if you don't put him in handcuffs and they sue you, you have to justify why his jaw is broken 2 places. So now he's resisting arrest. He's being unruly. He's some type of suspect in something, right? He looks like somebody. There's so many different ways they can write this up. And that's when you learn that it's about the authority. It's not about what's right or what should be right. It's about what they say is right a lot of time. And it's not all cops. Again, I'm not speaking about all cops. But there is a set number of guys that are out here, a group of guys out here that are out here doing the devil's work. This is the same cop that would bring the jump out boys to our neighborhood. Our neighborhood was comprised of guys that lived in the neighborhood. There was almost never anybody in our immediate group that was outside of our neighborhood. And at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, on some days, random days almost, you'd see a dark green van or a black van driving around, and it'd be the jump out boys. And they would jump out. And if they got a hold of you, all hell would break loose. Who knows what might happen to you? I know you might get punched for sure. For sure. And this is just for being outside. They want to question you about something. You've seen something, you know something, whatever the case may be. But this is the type of fear that they roamed with. This is the fear. These are grown men that are preying on their citizens to make them believe that they're lesser and that the police are more, or that the world should stop when these cops show up. Because in some way in their brain, they believe because they have a badge and a gun, they're better. I don't know, as I said before, what actually happened prior to those body cameras for those other cops that showed up in that Tyre Nichols situation. But I personally think that those cops that were on video beating that kid should get corporal punishment, capital type of punishment. That's what I think. I don't think it's right that us as law-abiding citizens and as taxpayers should have to pay for those guys to go to jail for 10, 20 years. I don't think that's right. I think that you take those guys outside and make an example out of them, just like they made an example out of him. And some people will say, well, that's not fair because, hey, if you go do something to them, it's over instantly. Well, I know Tyre wished that he thought it was instant rather than having to sit through that. Time stops when you're on the receiving end of that. It feels like forever. So to the cops that are out here that are doing right and that are good guys, man, hey, I commend y'all. But shame on y'all for knowing the guys that aren't doing the right thing and not saying anything. Shame on y'all for that. Y'all know who y'all are. Y'all know exactly who y'all are. It's not everybody, but the guys who are complicit in that. Because if you're not the answer, you're part of the problem. Part of the problem. I've had cops pull me over since I've been in Texas. This is some of these earlier stories when I was back home as a youngster. I was a kid. From the time I've been in Texas, I've had cops pull me over and say, hey, whose car is this? You look too young to be able to afford this car. Get out. Hey, I can't afford this car. How are you driving this car? Get out. Instantly. I've had cops pull me over, take me to jail for nothing. I mean, nothing. I mean, like, I go to jail, see the magistrate at 2 a.m. I don't even know why you're in here. Released. I go get my car from the impound lot. My tires are slashed. $600 a tire. My tires are slashed. All because this cop felt like, I guess, I didn't look like I deserved to be driving a certain car. The fuck does that mean? This is in Texas. I've been riding with one of my good friends. We got pulled over pretty close to Christmas one year after leaving the mall. Cop pulled me over. Of course, I smell weed. Now, here's the thing about that. Anybody who knows me, anybody who really knows me will tell you, I'm not even the guy to even put weed in front of. I'm just not that dude. I don't operate that way. But you smell weed in the car, so now you have probable cause to search a vehicle that had no issues. You don't even have a reason to stop me. You just was curious as to who was driving the car. Everything that I had just bought got tossed out in the street. And when I say tossed, I don't mean placed. I mean grabbed and thrown out into the middle of the street. As cars are riding by, everything's going on. They make my friend walk. Hey, get out and walk. He leaves. Well, now there's multiple cops, and now there's just me. So you get grabbed up. You get handled a certain type of way. They whisper little stuff to you. They talk crazy to you because they feel like they can. And I guess, based on the culture we live in, they can. That's not the problem for me, though. Because I'm the type of person that, based on the childhood that I came up with and based on the cops that I was around, I kind of match your energy. I don't have a problem with authority. I have a very bad problem with abuse of authority, though. Very bad problem with that. And I understand, hey, that might lead to you going to jail and it ain't worth it. No, it's worth it for me. The principle is worth it. The principle of the situation is always worth it for me. So if I gotta go sit in jail over the principle, guess what? I'm gonna go sit in jail, make some friends, and I'm gonna come home. And maybe that's not everybody else's cup of tea. Maybe it's not, but it's always mine. It's always been mine. And I guarantee you, I've argued with people and I've been a bad guy to people because they think that that's a selfish way to think about it. But I feel like somebody has to stand on their own 10 and has to say something. I got to be 10 toes down about something. And if it's got to be the way that you treat me, then that's just what it's going to be. If you pull me over and you give me energy, just know that I'm going to reciprocate that energy right back to you. So if you having a bad day and you pull me over for whatever reason and you go to 10 instantly, I'm going to meet you at 11. I don't believe that you taking an oath and you having a gun are the things that I should be worried about. I just don't feel that way. I don't. I should, based on what's happening that we're seeing. Well, that y'all are now seeing, because people who are outside at some point knew what was going on. But I just don't. And maybe it'll be the end of me one day. But if that's what it is, I've done worse stuff to people for less. So if that's what it is, I got to deal with that. But it's a difficult situation for me. It really is, because the person that I am now as an older guy, right, in my 30s, I'm a volunteer. Here's where the plot twist comes in. In the town that I live in, I am a volunteer firefighter. You heard that right. Why would you want to be a volunteer firefighter? What are the perks of that? I'm sure is the question or the thought process that's probably going through a couple people's heads as they're watching this part. I'll explain. I grew up in an environment, as I said before, where you kind of had to be who you are. Fear was not a thing that you could have to operate in certain environments that I came up in. And because of that, you understood that whatever consequences come from that lack of fear, you got to deal with that too. I've seen people die in front of me. I've seen people, like, when I say die in front of me, I mean like last breath type stuff. I've seen, if you name it, I've seen it. Stab wounds, hit with bricks, the whole nine. I've seen it. You know, or going through it, certain situations, right? Like I've got very personal knowledge about things that have happened to people that I care about. I've been to funerals of people that definitely didn't deserve it, or, you know, things like that. And what it does, again, it desensitizes you. So now I grew up in this environment where you get desensitized from the police. And then because of the environment that I'm in, I'm desensitized by everything else too. And so that puts you in a very precarious situation, because when you don't fear much, and as a lot of people say, they go, you know, as you're sitting with your friends, they go, what? Man, I ain't afraid of nothing. Hey man, I'm out here, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Everybody has that conversation, because it's macho to say that you don't fear anything. And so also, as a person of color like myself, I also understand that we are seen away by the world, I could say, right? I mean, maybe not the world, but at least the United States, right? Like, we're seen a certain way. We were once called super predators at one point. So I do know that. And I've lived that. Right? I've been in different states, and I see how I'm treated compared to my wife even, or other people that I hang out with who don't look like me. I peep little stuff, and it's not a problem. But here's where it's not a problem for me. It's not a problem for me because you have to make a decision, and I've made a decision at one point that I have control of my narrative. Yeah, I might look away, but come have a conversation with me. I may change your mind. Hey, you know, well, I heard that this is kind of the way, this is the stereotype. Well, you know what? I maybe I do fit that stereotype, but it may be by default. I may grow up in a certain area by default. You mean, like, nobody has ultimate say in where they grow up as a kid. Nobody has ultimate say in what environment they're placed in, especially when it's when money is an issue. If money's not an issue, that's a different conversation. But when you're in that situation and you get old enough to create your own narrative, I can either continue to complain about what I'm seeing on TV, and I can say, man, I sure hate that they keep killing black people on TV, when one, that's not necessarily always the case. It's just the things that get blown up on TV, number one. And number two, or I could do something about it. So if I want to create my own narrative and I want people to look at us different, well, let me do my part. Let me go volunteer somewhere where I'm doing something bigger than myself. Hey, now when my phone rings and it's time for me to go help somebody else, they don't see me as, hey man, the black firefighters coming. It's like, yo, like, these guys work with the fire department. These guys are firefighters. Like, let's talk to them. We need help. Slowly but surely, you will begin to recreate your narrative. And it's not going to happen overnight, of course, because it's not me that's creating the narrative. It's people that came before me that's creating the narrative. It's the guys that choose to not do nothing or choose to make it everybody else's fault why they're not winning, or why people look at them a certain way, or whatever the case may be. And by all means, you have every right to be the way you want to be. By all means. A lot of people have a crabs in a barrel mentality, and everybody knows that. A couple people think a certain thing, and then their friends are cool with them. They may think that they're wrong, but because they're friends, they're going to think that way too. You're never going to win everybody over, ever. But me working with this fire department means that I have to now talk to some of these same police that I didn't have any run-ins with these guys, but there were some prior guys at the same department that I've had run-ins with. The real deal, like, hey, listen, like, like, I don't, if you feeling froggy, right? So, but as you mature and you understand, hey, you know what? This guy probably is afraid. He's probably afraid. This guy hears these things, right? Some of us aren't the smallest guys. Some of us, in certain situations, act accordingly. I'm not an aggressive person by choice. I'm an aggressive person by survival and by environment. If you put me in an environment and anybody else in an environment where they have to feel like they have to survive, they're going to survive. That's just how that works. If I feel like, you're putting me in this environment and you're giving me no other option, but to kneel, I don't kneel. That's just not what I do. I just don't kneel. It's nothing personal. I just don't kneel. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll take that. But if I'm not wrong, you're going to have a problem, sir. Respectfully. But in the fire department that I volunteer for, there's a couple guys that are minorities, a part of the department. Cool guys. But at the end of the day, it's a thing where you kind of have to want to be about something other than yourself. Everybody wants to do these things, and they want inclusion, and they want all these things, but they want inclusion on their terms. You can't have you can't have it on your terms all the time. Sometimes you got to meet people where they are. Sometimes you got to go to them and go, hey, listen, like, this is what I'm going to do, and then do it. For some people to see, like, you know what, like, there are guys out here that do care about the perception. It's not all our fault, and it's not all their fault, right? Like, it's not for us or them. This ain't an either or. This is both. Some of my best friends that I've ever rode with, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's one person in particular I'm thinking about, that white guy, love him to death. When I say to death, I mean to death. But at the same time, hey, like, we came up from nothing together. You see what I'm saying? That plight that I have, he understands it because he was in it too. Some of these people don't come from that. When these people don't come from that, you have to understand. Some of these cops, they don't come from that. Some of these firefighters, they don't come from that. Some of these business guys, a lot of these business people, they don't come from that. So as you're trying to break into these businesses, any business, or you're trying to get into these doors, any doors, you have to understand, like, hey, like, there has to be, in order for there to be inclusion, I have to check myself first. I have to understand that emotionally, I can't be in this space where I'm trying to just prove it to people. I have to actually go do something that I'm passionate about in order for me to stick with it long enough to make that change. Everybody has something. Everybody's great at something. I think it's unfair for me to sit in front of people and say, you know what? I lack fear. And then watch guys who have fear get up and go put their life on the line to help other people, but I lack fear. So why wouldn't I go sign up if I lack fear, like I say? If I am who I say I am and I am wired the way that I'm wired, what's the best way for me to help people that wouldn't help me maybe? Well, it's just to be the best version of yourself. It's a choice that you wake up and have every day. I can take a nap right now, wake up, and the moment that I wake up, I can make a decision at that moment that I'm going to go do different, and then go do different. It's always a choice. It's never a necessity. What we do make a necessity is, hey, we need people to treat us better. Hey, we want cops to do this. Hey, we need all these things to happen, but we're not doing nothing about it. We're not doing nothing about it. Some of the most stand-up guys that I've ever met are bad people in the eyes of what general consensus would call bad guys. Some of the most stand-up guys I've ever met. Some of the realest guys I've ever met. Why is that? That's because in order for you to find out who you are, you got to lose yourself at some point. You have to. You have to get to a point where you have nothing left to figure out who you really are, and then you'll build from there. It's easy to build from nothing. You can't build on a false foundation. You can't sit here and go, well, you know what? Because all cops are bad, I'm not going to be a cop. Yo, if you feel that strongly about it, and you think that you have something that they don't, or you can pinpoint what they don't have, and you have it, well, go be a cop. Now, let's be clear, like, that's not my lane. I can't, as much as the fire thing is as far as I'm going. Me personally, I just can't see myself going that way. But there is a guy that works. Well, he's from this town. He doesn't work here anymore. He's from this town. I got the utmost respect for him. He's a cop. Utmost respect for him. Hands down. Met him when he was a youngster. He's younger than me still. Met him as a youngster. He did his 1-2 step. He went and did some military time or whatever. He came home, did the local stuff, and now he's off doing bigger things. Every time I see him, I salute him, commend him. Because you know what? Like, for so long, all people want to say is, man, we need people like us. A lot of the times the people that are saying we need people like us don't have the background that would stop you from being that if you wanted to. So, you're right. If we just stop, and I don't mean we as in color people, I mean people as in general, like in general. If us as people sit around and stop with the table talking and the pillow talking and actually like get up and go do something, other than march. And I'm not saying marching is a bad thing, but I'm just not a marcher. I'm just not that guy. I'm not a guy that's going to get and just complain and complain and complain and complain and complain. Even if it is right, even if it is a way to communicate, I'm just not that guy. I'm more of an action person. So the front of my vehicle has a fire department license, has a fire department plate. And when there's a fire and somebody needs a hand and I'm able to go, guess where I'm at? I'm out there. I'm the last person I'm sure some of these locals would envision would pull up. But again, it's the narrative. Think about the narrative in Memphis, a predominantly black city. There's already a stigma over Memphis. Now this happens. Think about the stigma that these neighborhoods, these desolate neighborhoods have, these very bad neighborhoods, right? Like think about what's going on over there. It's all about a stigma. It's what people think. There's good people everywhere. I was homeless. I went from being in a bad neighborhood to moving to another bad neighborhood, to being able to do this in order to survive, to being homeless, having no neighborhood, right? Because, I mean, you can't, like, have a bad neighborhood if you ain't got a house to live in, I would think, right? I don't know how you figure that out, but to having no neighborhood, a man without a home, or a child without a home. I don't want to say a man out, was out here. But yeah, to being this guy. There's so many hats that you can wear. The time that you have to make your narrative different is there. You just got to choose that time is important. A while back, I had put out a little short video, and in the video, I said, your only job is to be ready for your opportunity when your opportunity comes. Well, your opportunity is there every day. If you wake up and you walk around, you can see if you're taking yourself out of it, your personal feelings out of it, and you're just going into this thing the right way, and you mean well, every day you have an opportunity to do something. When's the last time you helped a homeless person? When's the last time, you pulled over and asked them what they need? My wife would tell you, every time I pull over somewhere and I see a homeless person, I'll pull them over and go, hey man, you hungry? I'll meet them at the store and go buy them whatever they want. At the behest of the people who work there. Hey, sir, you got to go outside. No, he's not. He going to buy whatever he want in the store, and then he going to go outside. It's happening. I got receipts. And maybe I have a soft spot for certain type of situations because I've gone through all these things and a lot of people haven't. And I understand that. But tragedy brings character. Tragedy brings character. Stand for something or fall for anything. Right? So I don't know. I don't know, folks. I don't know. I'm very interested to see how many people this year step up to the plate and allow their narrative to change and be complicit in their narrative changing. Because I talk to a lot of people. I'm around a lot of people. Of all races, of all creeds, right? Of all ethnicities, of everything. And I hear the same thing from every single body. This ain't a color thing. This is from everybody that I'm around. Hey, man, I just wish we had more of this. Hey, I wish that we could just make people see this. Hey, we got some positive stuff going on over here. Yeah, you do. But it don't matter. It don't matter if you don't broaden your horizon enough to go see it. Right? People aren't going to go look for you. You have to make yourself available to people. It doesn't work that way. It's not how it works. It doesn't work that way. I coach youth football. Most people, unless I actually told you that, or unless you actually know me, you wouldn't know that. And yeah, I'm helping the youth, and that's cool. But I feel like I should be doing that. That doesn't change my narrative. It doesn't change the narrative of people like me. Why? Because my kid plays football. So it's only in line for me to coach the sport that my kid's playing. Guess what my kid's not doing? My kid's not helping people whose house is burning down. My kid isn't doing that type of stuff. There's where my narrative changes. I don't want a high five for stuff I'm supposed to be doing. You can high five me for the stuff that I don't have to do, but that I gladly do and I like to do and I want to do. Police is the same way. Don't expect a high five from the people because you out here every day and you riding around. Because if you want the credit, you got to take the blame. So if I'm supposed to high five you for being outside and patrolling these streets, when you kill somebody who shouldn't be dying, what do I do then? You keep your hand up so I can smack it down if you want me to high five it when you doing nothing. Matter of fact, I do you one better. Tell me who I call on you when you're not doing your job. My disdain for police that I grew up to have came from police. It didn't come from somebody telling me, hey, well, you got to be careful because the police outside. No, my disdain came from police. Actual interactions with people who are supposed to protect me. Not kill me. Not put me in handcuffs and write up fake stories and go to a judge and make it seem like I'm some type of bad guy, and I'm not. I'm not. And if I am a bad guy, I've been a bad guy to people who've been bad people to me. That's who I've been. That's who most people are. There are people who prey on the weak, but most people are only bad to people that are bad to them. Maybe as police, we should do more talking to the community instead of just policing the community. What does policing the community mean? What does that mean? If that's left for interpretation, then whatever that cop feels like doing that day is policing the community. And don't just do it when something bad happens. Just be around. Get out your car and hang out. What do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna take your cop car? If they're afraid you're gonna beat the hell out of them already, you think they're gonna take a cop car and risk getting caught? What do you think that punishment is gonna be? The only reason police fear the people is because there is no respect. Respect has to be earned. The badge doesn't garner you respect. You still are a person behind the badge. Who are you behind that badge? If you can't, as a police officer, if you can't go outside and be your regular self when you off the clock, then you probably doing something wrong. If you have fear of retribution or some type of get back when you off the clock based on how you are on the clock, you're doing something wrong. Look yourself in the mirror. If ain't nobody else told you, I'll tell you, you're probably doing something wrong. And what happens is you bump into somebody who feels the way that I feel at some point, and they're not going to deal with it. Now that usually ends bad for the people like me who feel that way. And I understand it. But sometimes tragedy is what you need to wake the people up. And I'm not trying to rise any emotions, nothing like that. But a lot of times you see it. A lot of times you see, hey, the only time these kind of conversations come up is when something bad happens to somebody. 6 months out of the year, but nothing bad happens and nothing's on camera, it's quiet. Crickets. If we keep the same, if the energy is kept the same all the way through, then that's when you can initiate change. You can't initiate change when they know when it's coming. Hey, this just happened. This is going to get real for a little while. Let's weather the storm and it'll go away, and then we'll get back to business as usual. Create your narrative. I challenge you, create your narrative. Whatever you think your narrative is, go ask people. See what they think about you. See exactly what people think about you. And then make a concerted effort to change it. I guarantee you it's never too late to change your image. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. There is somebody whose mind you can change about you if you just decide that you're going to put forth the effort to be better than you were yesterday. Guaranteed. You don't have to be a cop. You don't got to be these things. It don't got to be that. It don't got to be that. There are ways of giving back to the community. There are ways of putting yourself out here so that people understand that, hey, like the way that you're perceived ain't right. But the way that you're perceived when you get pulled over, the way that you're perceived when you're in stores, the way that you're perceived when you're around certain people, it's not based on them knowing you personally. It's the people before you. Don't take it personal. Just understand where you stand and stand there. The hardest thing to be these days is to be right and stand by yourself. It's the hardest thing to be. Because everybody's so worried about what everybody else thinks rather than just being right. If right lands me by myself, well, then I should start getting used to being by myself then, right? Food for thought. So, to everybody out there, man, I appreciate y'all tuning in to episode 5, man, Humble Talk Podcast. You know, I don't know, man. Sad situation, man. Sad situation. Everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's been through a situation like this. But every day is a different day to get better. Every day is a day to be better. So Challenge your loved one, your kids, hubby, whatever it is. Find somebody and challenge them to change their narrative. And together, we won't win over the world. We just won't. World's too big. But what we will do is win over somebody. And that's where it starts. It starts with somebody. So we can walk outside with our head high, knowing that our best self is being put to the forefront. And everybody not going to like it. Everybody won't like it. But the people that will like it are the people that understand that it takes action. It takes action. It takes action. Accountability is action. That's what that is action. So as the action grows, the accountability grows. The hunger grows to do more, to be more. And as your hunger grows, you feed the hunger. You feed the hunger by adding people to that. Grab the next guy. Grab your friend that has the talent that he doesn't talk about to people, but you grab the guy that really wants to do something and can't figure out how. Hey, you know what? Figure out how to partner with that guy, and y'all do something together. Be the best version of yourself by choice. Don't let these cops or let these bad situations dictate, or a life or death situation dictate that you be your best version of yourself. Nah, just be your best version of yourself on a regular. The people who won't like you won't be here. The people that will like you gonna rock with you regardless. It don't matter. Either way, when I'm right, I'm right. And when I'm wrong, I'll take that too. As a man. So, till next time, I'll see you. Tune in. Pull up. Humble Talk Podcast. Episode 5. It's your boy Feast. I appreciate y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. And we out. Peace.